I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about our National Park Service. You may have been watching the news, and it's under threat from budget cuts from the Trump administration. I believe that it's important that we all step up and defend our National Park Service from these potential cuts. The Park Service has already experienced about a 16% reduction in park staff over the last decade. There's about $12 billion of backlog of needed repairs across the system. And by the way, that's about 4 years of their annual budget. Now the administration is proposing maybe 17% cuts to national funding. The administration thus far seems to be attempting to try and maintain staffing in parks, but cut staffing that's supporting the park system in regional offices. The National Park Service has a workforce of approximately 20,000 workers. About 14.5 thousand of those workers work in some park unit, thus a 6,000 or so reduction in workforce, which is around the order of magnitude that the administration is talking about. It would leave a skeleton centralized staff. What does that look like? What does our park system look like? There are a few parks that have very large and robust staffs. These are things like Yosemite and Yellowstone. But a third of parks have 10 or fewer staff working in those parks. These are places like Rosie the Riveter or John Muir's Homestead. These are parks where it'd be hard to imagine that they could lose any staff and continue to provide services to visitors. You get to 88% of park units by including all the parks that have less than 80 staff on them. And it's difficult to see how these parks manage the long-term vibrancy of the parks. So they may be able to staff day-to-day operations and visitor center, maybe keep toilets and garbage cans clean. But when it comes to engineering a new road or developing new visitor materials or dealing with climate change issues, these parks just don't have the capacity internally to deal with those sorts of things. These are the kinds of issues that the regional park offices help parks with and help them get long-term planning done. And then there's about 12% of parks that have a pretty robust staff. I'm sure that staffing losses would hurt in these parks, but these are parks that get a lot of visitors, and they're the parks we think of. And so when you think of a national park, you think of Yosemite, Yellowstone, Everglades, Glacier, Great Smokies, but that's not what the Park Service generally looks like. Those are exceptions, not the rule. And that's why it's important for us to step up. We have the small park argument that staffing at small parks may be adequate for day-to-day operations, but larger issues are beyond individual park capacity. This is why these regional offices exist, is to help all these small parks maintain the high quality of the national park system that we've all come to expect. So I've got an ask, and the ask is this. Contact your representative and ask them to support the National Park Service, that parks are found in the districts of 100% of our U.S. senators. All 50 states have park units. 60% of representatives have parks within their districts. That's a huge number. If we were to convince those representatives that our parks needed support, it would make a difference in terms of how our parks are supported. So how do you do that? Pick a park unit. So I live in Northern California. Here's the Bay Area above my head here. You can go to find a park in the National Park Service. It's part of their database. And you can zoom in and find a park in your area. So I'm going to pick on the John Muir Historic Site just because it's reasonably close to where I live and show you how you might do this. You can learn about the park. Again, searching the National Park Service site, it turns out that the John Muir National Historic Site has about 380 acres of walking trails, a historic house, and a grave site that people can visit. It gets about 50,000 visitors a year. It's a 382-acre site. These, by the way, are on page 26. It has 14 staff in 2023. That's on page 55 of that green book. You can look this up for every single park in the country. You can dig in as deep as you like. Most parks will provide who the key staff are, a map, a foundational document that says what the park is about and what's going on at the park. In this particular park, there's a planning document that's available. If you find a park, find a representative. Again, go on to the National Park site on legislative and congressional affairs. Just Google this, and it will tell you the congressional districts for each and every park in the country. And you can learn that the senators for this particular park are Alex Padilla and Adam Schiff, and the House of Representatives, it's District 8, and it's John Garamendi. The U.S. Census Bureau tells you the boundaries of a house district. You can see if you live in that person's district. And you can contact the representative. Go to the House of Representatives, and it will give you a lookup for every single member. We don't want our parks to go to seed. We've all seen old amusement parks or old signs that look sort of sad in 1960s. That's not how our park service is. We expect first class interpretive materials and a first class experience when we go see parks. And you have the public on your side. The YouGov poll in 2023 asked people's sentiment towards national parks. 41% had a very favorable view of parks, 34% had a favorable view of parks. That's 75% of people, contrasted to 6% of people who say they have an unfavorable or very unfavorable view of parks. We like parks. It should be an easy argument to tell our representatives that we need to support parks. The problem is that when we think of parks, we're really thinking of the wrong thing. We're thinking of Yellowstone. We're not thinking of Rosie the Riveter. We need to be thinking about Rosie the Riveter and support our park service. Thanks. Bye.